Trump must die.
Assassinate Trump.
Revenge on America. These are the words currently being chanted like a slogan in Iran. Right now, Ali Khamenei's funeral is being held in Iran. Let's take a proper look at this today. Let's get right into it. Starting from July 4th, Ali Khamenei's funeral was held in Iran. As you all know, Ali Khamenei died in an Israeli airstrike at the outbreak of the war. The funeral is being held on a very large scale, 126 days after Ali Khamenei's death. The authorities expect up to 20 million mourners to gather in Tehran alone, and because of the sheer scale, the city of Tehran has prepared 50 million loaves of bread. About 5,000 mosques and 700 schools in the capital area have been opened as accommodations. Also, during this period, shops in Tehran will be forced to close. The funeral is expected to continue until July 9th. From July 4th to July 5th, ordinary citizens are expected to pay their respects by passing in front of the coffin of Ali Khamenei, which is placed at Tehran Mosalla. And starting from July 6th, the mourning event will continue in Qom, a religious city in central Iran. And from July 7th, funeral ceremonies will also be held in Karbala, a Shia holy site in Iraq, as well as in Baghdad and Najaf. The procession will then go to Mashhad, where the burial ceremony will be held on July 9th, ending the funeral schedule. The funeral is for Ali Khamenei and 4 deceased family members. The mood among Iranians at the funeral was unexpectedly different.
It was much more agitated.
The streets were filled with mourners dressed in mourning clothes, but it wasn't just an atmosphere of mourning. Many citizens waved red flags symbolizing revenge, expressing strong anger. Among the crowd, chants like "Death to America," "Revenge," and "Trump must die" erupted continuously. Some participants, feeling emotional, not only chanted slogans, but also called for retaliation against the United States and Israel. The voices of the people gathered at the scene grew louder as time passed, and as the funeral procession passed by, shouts demanding revenge echoed several times. Even more extreme remarks were made in the speeches. Some citizens even mentioned President Donald Trump by name and made remarks suggesting he should be assassinated, and the surrounding crowd was seen responding with applause and cheers. These remarks don't reflect the Iranian government's official stance, but they show that hostility toward the United States has surged to a significant level after the supreme leader's death. Though the funeral was meant to mourn the national leader, the atmosphere shifted into a rally showing anger toward the United States and Israel. As this atmosphere continues, it is highly likely that public opinion within Iran demanding retaliation will grow stronger, and there are predictions that the new leadership will also find it difficult to ignore these sentiments. It is also worth noting that the funeral date has been set for July 4th. This date is when the United States celebrates Independence Day, marking the symbolic 250th anniversary of the nation's founding this year. Across the United States, major celebrations and fireworks happen on this day, while Iran will hold the supreme leader's funeral simultaneously, attracting global attention. Some analysts believe the timing is too perfect to be coincidence. Iran has long leveraged its conflict with the United States for political gain. On the day the United States celebrates its biggest holiday, holding the supreme leader's funeral and spreading anti-American slogans is seen by many as a move with symbolic significance. At the funeral, chants condemning the United States and calls for revenge continued, and these scenes quickly spread through global media.
The United States.
On the day of the celebration, Iran displayed mourning and anger to the world. Meanwhile, US Independence Day draws global media attention to the United States. From Iran's perspective, it is possible that they chose the timing of the funeral as the most effective moment to use it as an international political message. Some analysts say they used the supreme leader's death to boost internal unity and reinforce their hardline stance against the United States. For these reasons, this funeral is being evaluated as more than just a memorial event, but also as an occasion that carried political signals to the United States and messages to the outside world. President Trump also showed a reaction that was different from expectations after watching the funeral. He said in an interview that he was surprised to see so many Iranians at the funeral shedding tears and mourning. He said he had thought that the Iranian people hated Khamenei's actions, but the actual scenes were quite different from what he expected. He added that he couldn't tell whether those tears were real or fake, expressing doubt about the large-scale mourning atmosphere at the funeral. This was taken as a public statement that there was a difference between his previous perception of Iranian public opinion and what was actually shown at the scene. President Trump continued, making even stronger remarks. He said that if Iran's top leadership and military officials were gathered in one place for the funeral, he could eliminate them all with a single strike, but he would not do so. In effect, he publicly mentioned that the funeral site could become a very vulnerable military target. These remarks are interpreted as both a show of the United States' awareness of the Iranian leadership's whereabouts and movements, and as a warning that military options can be considered at any time. Meanwhile, negotiations between the United States and Iran are scheduled to resume in Pakistan on July 11. However, the gap in opinions between the two sides has not yet been narrowed. On June 21, high-level talks between the two sides began in Switzerland. At that time, Iran claimed that an agreement had been reached to release part of its billions of dollars in frozen funds, but the United States expressed the exact opposite view. In addition, the two sides are also sharply divided over issues related to the Hormuz Strait. I think it would be good to talk about the Hormuz Strait Agreement. Iran is strongly insisting that it should continue to collect fees from ships using the Hormuz Strait. They also said they will give special treatment to friendly countries like China. In addition, Iran claims that these fees are not tolls, but rather costs for ensuring the safety and supervision of passing ships, as well as for addressing environmental issues caused by the operation of large vessels. Of course, those things are more or less the same, but it seems that Iran is carefully choosing every word to steer things in their favor. Oman also appears to be wavering. According to reports, Oman recently submitted an official proposal that includes charging service fees to ships using the Strait of Hormuz, including those from the United States and other Western countries. It is reported that the US negotiation team, which is currently in talks with Iran, has also received this proposal. Iran explains this not as a toll, but as a fee for ship safety management and navigation support. They are carefully choosing their words to avoid controversy about violating freedom of passage under international law. The example Oman cited is the Straits of Malacca and Singapore. This is one of the busiest maritime routes in the world, but the water depth is
shallow and narrow, making ship passage difficult.
Ships face a high risk of hitting underwater rocks or colliding. In the past, there were also many incidents involving pirates, so a significant amount of money is spent on installing navigational safety facilities, dredging the sea floor, and continuously maintaining the route. A cooperative system with the International Maritime Organization was created, including a navigational aid fund where ships using the strait voluntarily contribute. However, the international community believes that the Strait of Hormuz cannot be considered in the same way as cases like the Malacca and Singapore Straits. The Strait of Hormuz has a depth of about 70 to over 100 meters, making it very deep, so even very large oil tankers can pass through without significant restrictions. It is also not an environment where large-scale dredging operations need to be carried out repeatedly to maintain the route. Many experts also say that the structure of the strait is much easier to manage compared to the Strait of Malacca. For these reasons, there are ongoing criticisms that imposing new fees on ships based on separate management costs is not convincing. If implemented, this system will likely face strong opposition from the international shipping industry and oil importing countries, becoming a major issue in future negotiations. However, the bigger issue is that Oman previously claimed it would not charge tolls, but now it is asking the Western world for their opinion on whether it should collect fees. This shows that their position has changed a bit.
You can see that, that's right.
As a result, the United States' concerns are growing even more. The most important figure emerging here is Mojtaba Khamenei, who is being strongly mentioned as the likely successor. He has the symbolic status of being the supreme leader's son, but now he faces his first real test where he must firmly establish his authority as a leader. The problem is that Mojtaba Khamenei hasn't even attended the funeral.
It's a very unusual situation. Above all,
at this funeral, there have been continuous calls for revenge against the United States and Israel. Hardline factions like My Young Subi are demanding the new leadership respond even more forcefully.
There is a prevailing atmosphere that they must take action
is being created
in this situation.
If this public opinion continues to grow, it is said that Mojtaba Khamenei will not be able to ignore it easily. On the other hand, hastily choosing military action also carries considerable
risk.
Currently, the United States and Israel are closely
monitoring Iran's movements.
They stated they'll respond immediately to any further provocations.
They are maintaining this stance.
In this situation, if a retaliatory attack is carried out, it is difficult to rule out the possibility of a renewed military conflict. Especially since Iran has recently suffered considerable damage to its military facilities, nuclear facilities, and even its command structure due to the war, it would be quite burdensome to continue the conflict in the same way as before. On the other hand, if they do not respond at all, the internal political burden could become even greater. After the supreme leader's death, many citizens at the large funeral demanded revenge, and hardline religious and political groups are also calling for a strong response. If the new leadership focuses only on negotiation and stability, hardliners may criticize them for weak leadership. For these reasons, Mojtaba Khamenei is faced with a very difficult choice from the very beginning of his term, having to choose between the reality of needing to avoid military conflict and the strong hardline public opinion within the country. There is analysis suggesting that depending on what decisions he makes in the future, not only negotiations with the United States, but also the overall level of tension in the Middle East could change significantly.